The rigid Heddle reed is threaded, and you can see where the lead sticks are, and they're still hanging across the back. And the warp is, right now it's on the floor. So what we have to do yet is I have to go around to the other side of the loom, and we are going to start tying on all the ends. And let's move over here so you can see there are all the ends that are through and knotted. And the plan now is to take the stick that's on there and tie it on. It's going to be done basically very similar to the way that I tie on when I'm doing weaving on a floor loom. The difference with this one is that I often warp the loom front to back, or excuse me, back to front. That would mean I would have rolled all the yarn on here using a raddle on a floor loom and then thread the heddles and the reed. In this situation, this rigid heddle is like the raddle. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to tie on sections of the yarn onto this particular rod. And I'm going to, see, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Isn't that nice? Nice, even. I like to start fairly close to the middle. What I'm going to do is take an inch and an inch, do it the same way that I would do when I'm tying onto the front of a floor loom. I'm going to first do just a very easy square knot. I'm going to do another one here. Well, I shouldn't say a square knot yet. I'm doing the first half of a square knot. Let me clarify that. We're going to continue. Just getting the first part done. Now, one thing, if you're very particular, you can work on trying to get all of these ends to be almost the same length, as close as you can. It's just a little less loom waste, and it winds on a little bit easier. Perhaps that's one reason why I'm not fond of cutting them and tying them on and winding the warp on, because the ends are different, and then sometimes it's a little hard to have the yarn wind on smoothly. Of course, most of the time I'm doing 15 to 20 yard warps. When you're doing a shorter warp, 3, 4, 5 yards, it's not, you don't have as much yarn you're dealing with. So overall, the picture isn't as much of an issue. I almost did a square knot there. Don't want to do that yet. I'm going to come back to the other side. Sorry if my shadow's in the way here. Skylight is on, but not directly over when you put your head over top of it. Let's keep on going. And one more knot on this side. And again, this is only the first half of the square knot. Good to iron that out a little bit. I see I have one thread that's a little extra long, so I'm going to pull on this to find out where it is over here. And there we go, pull it back. And the other end. Now you see I started in the middle, I'm going side to side, same way that I normally do if I was tightening this. Right now I'm not going to tighten it, so it's probably not as big an issue because this is the wind on or the, not the fabric beans. So we have all of those ready. Those are all tied on. Looks good. So now we're going to go and tie on tie the other one on. Just wanted to make sure it looked, you could see what I was doing. All right, continue. Now we have the square knots. I could have done them at the beginning, but I just wanted to make sure everything was looking correctly before I continued, since we are recording this. Of course, I'm sure you're going to look on the internet and you'll see different ways of doing what I'm doing. Doing a little bit of an experiment, see how this works. All right, so those are all ready. And we're going to pause again for a moment because I need to get the paper. We're going to start rolling on paper, and that was one of the questions that someone had. How do we roll on the paper on the back beam, making it even tension and doing it so everything works? Okay, we are now ready to wind on the warp onto the rigid Heddle loom. As I said before, this is a bit of an experiment because I'm trying to use the leaf sticks like I use on a loom. And you can see that I've repositioned them. The leaf sticks are still between the cross, holding it separate. They're underneath the loom to provide a little weight. When warping a floor loom, that's what the sticks are used for. I don't usually use a lot of extra weights or any tugging or anything like that. I also started the very thin corrugated cardboard underneath the warp. Now, one thing you want to make sure, let me walk over here and show you that I have another piece. You want to make sure that whatever you're using, cardboard, paper, is wider than your warp, a good inch or so. Because otherwise, if you get too close to the edges, that's when things start to kind of collapse. You could also start with this and you could add some thin sticks if you'd like to. So we're going to begin winding it on, seeing how everything works here. I'm going to start with this. And if I wanted to, I could, but I'm just going to keep winding, making sure everything is in good order. Looks good. Once in a while, I look over here and I want to straighten out. I know I have little stripes on each side of the for the placemat. The other thing too, if you want to, and I do this on my floor loom, is sometimes I do kind of tug it a little bit, kind of just give it a little tug. Keep winding it on. And the other thing is to make sure that your cardboard, your paper, whatever it is staying where it's supposed to stay. Okay, now we're getting to where some threads are starting to not want to be nice, and that's where you can tug on a little bit to kind of get those tangles out. Keep warping, or keep winding. Again, we're down to where there are some threads. Because it was tied on, not all of them were even. They're all going to come out a little uneven as we get to the other end. I'm going to keep going. Over here. Again, a little bit more that we have to work with. This is again a 4-yard warp. So maybe use your fingers. I know some people use combs. And I'm also getting to where the tie is. So I'm going to untie that. And give a little tug. Keep going. And now we're to where I need to add some more of the cardboard or paper, whatever you're using. So we come up around, add the next piece, keep on going. A few more little tangles here. Another reason, like I said, I'm not that fond of doing it this way, but you don't have rattles with the with rigid Heddle looms. Oh, there's another idea. We could do that. Wind it on and then thread it. When you do it with the direct warping method, you don't have this issue because you're just going through the slots. Here we're going through the slots as well as the holes. But again, the rigid heddle is a tug there, almost to the end. I know some of my friends use combs. If you have finer yarn, you get one of those large combs. And I'm going to untie again the very end. I'm almost out of paper. Or the corrugated cardboard is what I'm using right now. I'm going to go a little bit farther till all of that's done. The other reason too is I can see if you went too thick of a yarn, it's going, if you use too much yarn, heavy yarn, you probably would run into the support pieces underneath here. And that's another reason why people don't often use that much, like 9 yards on a rigid heddle loom. As I said before, most of them are just not designed to handle that long of a warp. All right, we're going to stop there because I ran out of the paper. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pause and then we'll tie on and we will start weaving.